Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2, Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. Black Fire Demon Lord put away the Jade Vial, and once again instructed, Brother Luo-He, you also should know that extracting part of the body of a primordial bloodline creature is against the rules. This matter must be kept secret. And do not let any of this material get out. Rest assured, it will not be disclosed, Luo Feng replied. Black Fire Demon Lord nodded and then disappeared. Holding the cloth bag in his hand, Luo Feng didn't need Black Fire Demon Lord's reminder to comprehend the difficulty of obtaining this 1/10 of a body. After all, he had spent over a century pushing this project in both Flame Wind Ancient Country and Thunder Ancient Country, and although he failed, he understood many of the intricacies involved. Creatures of this level of primordial bloodline were guarded by entities at the monarch and emperor levels. The highest, ultimate realm strength primordial bloodline creatures were reportedly either avatars or incarnations of the two primogenitors garrisoning them. There was fear that these primordial bloodline creatures might escape and cause great disasters. Sigh. With one step, Luo Feng traversed the void and returned inside the quiet room, entering the Star Tower. In one of the spatial layers of the Star Tower, Luo Feng released all parts of the body contained in the cloth bag. Boom tilde tilde tilde, first came the immensely large half-hoof claw, which accounted for about half of the body material this time. The hoof claw resembled a towering mountain, each sharp hook claw spanning hundreds of millions of kilometers. There was also a segment of a gigantic tail billions of kilometers long. These two parts were relatively intact. The rest were comprised of numerous scale armors, muscles, bones, and a large amount of blood, among others. The aura that struck his face made Luo Feng hold his breath. The physical body exhibits a 24 forms life form. This primordial bloodline creature, although at the second realm of godly king strength, I estimate it to be among the top within that category, Luo Feng observed. Low intelligence, low realm, yet it can demonstrate such strength. This physical body must be close to that of an ultimate realm life form. Raw tilde 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 tilde. On the corpse, a vast shadowy figure coalesced, appearing as an endless majestic upright figure staring at Luo Feng, emitting an angry roar. Bloodline will, Luo Feng understood. This bloodline will was not the will of the deceased primordial bloodline creature, but rather the source of the primordial bloodline, the residual will of a genuine primordial life. Even through generations of dilution, the will could still transmit through the bloodline, possessing strong contamination capabilities. Walking the path of the primordial bloodline, one must first be able to resist such contamination. Despite it being fraught with flaws and calamities, if one surpasses all the flaws and withstands all calamities, it can also lead to tremendous achievements, like the Thunder Ancestor. The Thunder Ancestor and primogenitor Yang Feng had captured genuine primordial life, and used its bloodline to propagate generations across the land of origin to dilute the bloodline. Brilliant. Luo Feng ignored the impact of this elusive will. Extending his hand to touch the scales, examining the dark yellow hook claws on the hoof, his consciousness penetrated, probing the essence within these matters. Under his observation, matter immediately magnified billions of times, allowing him to observe the tiniest structures swiftly. Every 10 particles fused with each other, inseparable, naturally forming one form. 240 particles divided into 24 groups, with the group of particles intertwining and revolving, naturally forming 24 spaces. These 24 spaces, akin to a formation, were tightly linked, continuously revolving. So beautiful. Luo Feng watched carefully. Though both special grade inheritances had detailed explanations, it was like seeing a three-dimensional schematic. When the materials of a 24 forms life form were right before his eyes, the shock was much stronger. Perfect. Such a perfect life. Each basic structure of life contains 24 spaces, tightly interconnected like a formation. Trying to destroy such a life structure is extremely difficult. Luo Feng merely looked and knew the terrifying nature of this life form. The form of the 10 directions world is only the entry level for a world life form. The 24 forms truly reflect some terrible aspects of a world life form. The path of world life form is daunting, yet the special grade inheritance of world life form in infinite space can only be exchanged up to the ultimate realm chapter. Additionally, Luo Feng could unleash the power of this inheritance because of the formless and intangible ability, but formless and intangible can only transform matter born within the land of origin, which does not nurture matter above that ultimate realm of God King. If one becomes an ultimate realm being, the path must eventually change. Of course, that is a matter for the future. First in the land of origin, own true, unrivaled strength. Every form of the 24 forms, the combination of the 6 branches is too perfect. Luo Feng immersed himself, and his research lasted over 10,000 days until suddenly a complete single form naturally emerged in his mind. The difference between learning from books is shallow. By observing actual, tangible life materials, I have finally broken through the last bottleneck, comprehending the first form of the 24 forms life form. Luo Feng laughed heartily. The first form of the 24 forms is the hardest to comprehend. Because the difficulty of each form is equal, once the first form is comprehended, the second and third forms will get progressively easier. Comprehending the first form is akin to having comprehended half of this life form. I can feel it. Just a little more effort in studying and researching, and within 10 eras, the great Tao of life origin could step into the second realm of Godly King, Luo Feng felt. Because of his comprehension of the first form, Luo Feng accumulated much experience in the integration of the 6 branches. It's no wonder the inheritance records state that the form of the 24 life forms is theoretically the highest level of the life form attainable at the first realm of the Godly King. But comprehending 3 or 4 forms naturally leads to a breakthrough. Luo Feng was in high spirits. From the first realm of the Godly King to the second realm of the Godly King is still very difficult. Many Godly Kings are stuck in the first realm, eventually choosing to cultivate the primordial bloodline. Even the proud Jiaoyin God King had never cultivated the primordial bloodline, yet she was invincible in the first realm of Godly King. She wanted to rely on her own strength to reach the second realm of Godly King, but making that breakthrough was immensely difficult. I had just become a Godly King, wielding the 6 major branches of life, and my cultivation went so smoothly because I mastered all 6 branches. Observing the complete great Tao of life origin, and guided by 2 special grade inheritances, in over 100 eras, I had touched the threshold of the second realm of Godly King. Luo Feng was quite satisfied. Of course, he wouldn't be short-sighted, rushing to comprehend the breakthrough. Every step of the cultivation must be solid and dedicated, constantly honing one's comprehension. If one were to always seek shortcuts in the early stages, what about comprehending the complete Great Tao in the future? Without any reference to the Great Tao, how could one comprehend realms beyond the Godly King? By then, it would be too late for regrets. Compared to the Great Tao of life origin, progress in the Great Tao of destruction origin is considerably slower. Even now, I don't feel close to breaking through to the second realm of Godly King. Luo Feng silently reflected. Although he had taken 5-colored treasure medicine twice, which greatly hastened his progress on the path of destruction, yet, the path of life excelled continually in observing the Great Tao, always progressing more quickly. Now that I have the 24 forms life materials as a reference, my comprehension of the 24 forms will only be smoother. It seems that the second realm of Godly King will first be attained on the path of life. Luo Feng looked at the enormous corpse materials in front of him, and with one thought, began to collect some of the materials. A few scales, muscles, bones, blood, film from the tail, and the shortest hook claw. The materials Luo Feng collected were less than 1,000th of all the materials. Sigh. After setting aside the materials he had collected, Luo Feng then mentally communicated, "Morosa, hurry to the Star Tower." Ever since his master had said there will be good news soon, Morosa's heart had been restless, always waiting for his master's call. Go to the Star Tower. Morosa heard the mental communication, and couldn't help but rejoice. It was not normal for the master to summon him to the Star Tower. Sigh. Morosa proficiently made his way to the quiet room in the city owner's mansion, and saw the Star Tower. Without any obstacles, he entered the interior of the Star Tower. Master. Just as Morosa started speaking, he saw the towering primordial bloodline corpse materials nearby, especially the massive hooves, which dazzled his eyes. This is. Morosa's voice trembled with excitement. Swallow it. Swallow it. As the instinct of a sector beast, he intensely desired to devour the enormous corpse materials in front of him. This is roughly 1/10 of a primordial bloodline creature's body, Luo Feng said. In terms of physical strength, it far surpasses the normal second realm of godly king, even possessing some traits of an ultimate realm life form. I can feel. Morosa looked and muttered, if I swallow it, I will definitely break through. I will become much stronger. I've spent almost all the treasures I've accumulated since coming to the land of origin, even owing some favors, to get this part of the body. Luo Feng smiled at Morosa. Morosa, I've given up a lot for you. Luo Feng was joking. His significant investment was primarily for practicing his own 24 forms. But in essence, 10% of this primordial bloodline creature's body. Luo Feng only took some scraps, he mainly gave the rest to Morosa. Yeah, thank you master, you are so good to me. Morosa looked greedily at the hot materials, he could hardly restrain himself. Luo Feng asked, are you sure you can reach the second realm of godly king this time? I definitely can. I can feel that this part of the body material will help me far more than the bodies of 10 second realm godly kings. Morosa was very sure. In the stage of the second realm of godly king, I guess the accumulation will be quite deep. Good, after you break through. I want to see what a sector beast of the second realm of godly king can do, Luo Feng said, waving his hand. Go to your own layer of space, and slowly absorb and assimilate. Swoosh. The plethora of body materials, along with Morosa, was transferred to Morosa's designated layer of space. I am getting closer and closer to the ultimate realm. Morosa looked at the massive body materials in front of him and immediately opened his huge mouth. First, countless blood flew into his mouth. Although the bloodline will was roaring, Morosa didn't care. He wasn't merging with the bloodline, but was using the realm inside his body to devour and thoroughly digest. Just by a surge of massive blood into his internal realm, Morosa felt the realm, as if greatly nourished, the growth rate rapidly accelerating. Luo Feng was contemplating the materials for the 24 forms life form, and he could also sense Morosa's cultivation progress at any time. Morosa is digesting very slowly this time, Luo Feng noticed. It took Morosa more than 100 days to absorb the blood, and only then did he start to consume the muscles, very carefully and meticulously. After more than 1,000 days, he had devoured all the bones to exhaustion. After consuming all the fragments, Morosa opened his huge bloody mouth and directly swallowed the several billion kilometers long tail into his domain. With this gulp, Morosa began his transformation. He reverted to his true form, his body surfaced with snow-white scale armor, and his entire body started to radiate a holy light, as if it was meant to cleanse everything. This formless aura made even Luo Feng's heart tremble. Did Morosa just naturally evolve his physical body right, after breaking through to the second realm of the godly king? Luo Feng silently marveled. For cultivators, even if they broke through in their realm, they still needed to comprehend the corresponding secret techniques. Just like how he himself must comprehend the 24 forms and obtain the 24 forms materials, and combine them with the formless and intangible ability to finally transform the physical body. But sector beasts, being perfect life forms from birth, had a perfect trajectory of growth, heading straight for the ultimate. Laws of the physical body. Laws of domain. Laws of assassination. All sorts of secret techniques are naturally understood as they grow to the corresponding levels. After he completely digests his food, I must compare our strengths. Luo Feng was quite looking forward to it. Xin Yu, this little fellow, has also broken through. Luo Feng realized that his second disciple, Xin Yu, had finally broken through to the primal chaos realm. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Blade River Sect, the main hall of the sect headquarters. All of Luo Feng's registered disciples had already arrived in the hall. As a sect established by the overlord of the land of origin, the Blade River Sect was relatively new, having been established only for just over a century. The only ones qualified to enter the main hall of the sect were Luo Feng's direct disciples, registered disciples, and 2 elders. Brother Xin Yu is truly amazing. This time in closed-door cultivation, he directly advanced to the primal chaos realm. He's the first in our Blade River sect to break through to the primal chaos realm since its establishment. The registered disciples were both envious and hopeful, also looking forward to the day they would break through. Suddenly, Moyu Qingyang, dressed in a cyan robe, walked in. Big senior brother. Big senior brother. Each of these registered disciples respectfully greeted him, as the big senior brother was after all the first disciple under their master. And he was also the disciple of Elder Luo Sao, holding an indisputable status within the sect. Moyu Qingyang nodded with a smile and briefly chatted with his junior brothers and sisters. Big senior brother can still smile. This time, Brother Xin Yu has become a primal chaos realm being, soon to be an elder, on par with Elder Luo Sao in status. Cultivators, ultimately it's about personal strength. Big senior brother is still lacking somewhat. These registered disciples were outwardly enthusiastic and respectful, but they also knew some of the internal dynamics of the sect, and naturally, they were more convinced by Brother Xin Yu. Soon, Brother Xin Yu, dressed in blue robes, walked in. His knife had completely disappeared, but as a being of the primal chaos realm, his life level was naturally much stronger. Brother Xin Yu. Brother Xin Yu. The registered disciples were even more sincere and respectful. Second junior brother. Moyu Qingyang also looked at his junior brother with a smile, quite emotional. He had tried very hard. Yet, he couldn't reach the primal chaos realm through the bloodline path, while his second junior brother was an unlimited godly body on the law path, and had already reached the primal chaos realm. Their talents were too far apart. Xin Yu also looked towards Moyu Qingyang, politely saying, Big senior brother. Second junior brother, your breakthrough is a joyous occasion for the whole Blade River sect, Moyu Qingyang said. You're the first primal chaos realm being nurtured by our sect since its establishment. Xin Yu smiled and replied, in the future, the Blade River sect will see many more primal chaos realm beings emerge. I'm merely going ahead temporarily, it's nothing special. And with big senior brother's accumulations, I believe it won't be long before you reach the primal chaos realm. I'm still far off, Moyu Qingyang chuckled self-deprecatingly. The 2 direct disciples conversed while the registered disciples listened on. Suddenly, an intangible aura enveloped the area. Moyu Qingyang, Xin Yu, and the 10 registered disciples all looked up towards the main hall above, where Luo He in a silver robe was seated on the throne, and to his left was the former elder. Master. Moyu Qingyang and Shenyu, the two direct disciples, immediately bowed respectfully. Master. The registered disciples followed suit. These disciples had all gone through hardships to join the Blade River sect. They were well aware that throughout the land of origin there were ancient and terrifying beings, and among the many neighboring nations, the monarchs of Sha Kingdom and Yu Kingdom, as well as City Lord Luo He, were prominent figures. To be disciples of City Lord Luo, he was definitely clinging to a powerful support. Luo Sa is in closed-door cultivation, and couldn't come. Luo Feng looked down and smiled. Shenyu, you have achieved the primal chaos realm in such short time, which shows your exceptional talent. From today onwards, you will also become an elder of our Blade River sect. Yes, Shenyu responded. Luo Feng waved his hand. Immediately, a complete set of Chaos Realm Supreme Grade weapon secret treasures flew out, along with a green and a black jade vial. Grant a set of secret treasures, 100 billion cosmic sand, and 10 treasures to assist in cultivation, Luo Feng said indifferently. Shenyu looked at the treasures flying towards him. He could feel that each weapon's secret treasure was terrifying, each likely a supreme item among the primal Chaos Realm treasures. A complete set probably worth 200 to 300 billion cosmic sand. And the 10 treasures assisting in cultivation, those were rare treasures hard to acquire in the outside world. Yet, the 100 billion cosmic sand was the most common among them. Thank you, Master, Shenyu felt at this moment, appreciating the advantages of having a terrifying overlord as a master, casually granting what would take him eons to accumulate on his own. The other disciples also watched with envy. The master, truly generous. Luo Feng, however, did not think it was much. In many border countries, joining the primal chaos realm could grant one a primal chaos prefecture as a fiefdom. A fiefdom was worth more than what Luo Feng had given. Of course, the primal chaos prefecture fiefdom was by slowly accruing minor benefits over time, and was a way to completely bind a cultivator of the primal chaos realm. Once they left, they had to return the fief. What Luo Feng granted was outright. Moreover, as the disciple grew and established merits, more would be granted. This was why cultivators were eager to have super-powerful individuals as their masters. As Luo Feng grows stronger, these treasures will seem trivial to him. Yuan, who was watching by the side, was also a beneficiary. Primordial crystal spirit fruit, and even treasures from sacred places that suited cultivation in the primal chaos realm, Luo Feng had given plenty to Yuan. For Yuan, Luo Feng provided wholeheartedly. Because he was the second pillar of the human race. For Shenyu, Luo Feng just treated him as he normally would a direct disciple. Naturally, there was a difference in the resources provided to both sides. And Yuan's talent, Luo Feng could feel it was much more formidable than Shenyu's, already possessing the strength matching that of a guest official of the Primal Chaos Realm, pinnacle of Primal Chaos Realm strength. Yuan, drawing from some inheritances in the Flame-Wind Ancient Country's Inheritance Palace, forged his own path. His true body and illusionary avatar now bore no distinction, each manifesting identical strength. But forging a path was exceptionally difficult. Yuan, not following the orthodox origin Tao of the world, instead merged illusion and reality. The illusionary path was his own creation, while the real path was the origin Tao of the world. Only by merging the two could illusion and reality integrate. Forge a path is quite challenging. Luo Feng glanced at Yuan beside him. He himself had opened up the great Tao of life and death, and had yet to fathom any branch of the great Tao. Inside the Star Tower. After nearly half a century of devouring and absorbing, Morosa had assimilated all essentials from the primordial bloodline creature corpse, and had stopped cultivating. How do you feel, Morosa? Luo Feng looked at Morosa, who stood before him in his true form, draped in snow-white scale armor, with even the top scales naturally forming a crown-like shape. Morosa stood there, a holy light naturally illuminating everywhere, his formless majesty terrifyingly extreme. I feel great, Morosa looked at Luo Feng. I feel stronger than even you, master. Ha ha. Luo Feng laughed. It seems you want a beating. Master, just try. I don't believe you can still beat me. Morosa felt an unprecedented strength. The evolution of his physical body and the natural growth of his soul, combined with the great Tao of destruction origin, made his spiritual will also grow continuously, reaching the bottleneck of a godly king's limit. In every aspect, Morosa felt fearless. Let's give it a try then, Luo Feng said, and a silver-clad Luo Feng appeared beside him. Boom! The silver-clad Luo Feng transformed into a dazzling silver blade light, slashing towards Morosa. Morosa stood there, bathed in holy light, which illuminated everything around him. As the silver blade light approached, it slowed down. When it was about a dozen feet away from Morosa, the silver blade light completely stopped. Master, your avatar can't even touch me, Morosa said with a smile. I'm not like the flawed second realm godly kings of Sha Kingdom. I don't have any weaknesses. Domain, energy, physical body, close combat, my avatar. I can't break through my domain, Morosa looked at Luo Feng. Interesting, Luo Feng watched Morosa. Then I'll give it my all and see. Thunderous roars tilde. Suddenly, a huge figure descended from another layer of the Star Tower space. It was the immensely majestic silver-clad Luo Feng. This tremendously majestic silver-clad Luo Feng, whose aura was no less strong than Morosa's, held in his hand a gigantic blood shadow knife. Now this is interesting, Morosa observed the majestic giant silver-clad Luo Feng, grinning broadly. Come on. I'll let you make 3 moves first. Feeling incredibly confident, Morosa, having absorbed a primordial bloodline creature, had greatly grown. He had naturally realized many secret techniques of the second realm of the godly king. He felt that any move he made could handle his master. You are letting me make 3 moves. Luo Feng's body was 1/3 of a world life form. Controlling such a body was a substantial burden on Luo Feng's spiritual will. However, just by triggering the moves ingrained in the blood shadow knife, it was still possible for Luo Feng, and this was also his strongest state, without using the Star Tower. Morosa looked at Luo Feng leisurely, standing there and letting Luo Feng make his moves. Boom! Luo Feng struck with his knife, and the blade light shone brilliantly, dazzling Morosa. An incredibly dazzling strike. It gathered all the might of Luo Feng as a vast world life form, and then unleashed it all at once. This explosive force cascaded forth magnificently, reminiscent of the crushing stars of the Lai Yuan technique. By the time Morosa sensed this, he was already hit. First, an intangible force infiltrated and eroded Morosa's body. By the time he realized he had been struck, that overwhelming force was already upon him, inevitable, rolling over Morosa's body, his body being eroded, sliced, minced, crushed, and obliterated. Various destructive forces merged, annihilating this body. The master is indeed the master, able to unleash such formidable might even at the first realm of the godly king, truly terrifying. Morosa, with 99% of his body crushed, still had invisible energies regathering, his blurry figure speaking, but master, I am a sector beast. Do you think it's easy to kill me with moves from the great Tao of destruction origin? In the blink of an eye, Morosa had fully recovered, the holy light shining brightly all around him, unscathed. 2 moves left, Morosa smiled at Luo Feng. Continue. Luo Feng was somewhat surprised looking at Morosa. The prowess of 1/3 of a world life form only required a small amount of spiritual power to trigger the blood shadow knife techniques. In terms of sheer power, it was already 50 to 60% of Emperor Gui Shu's. Of course, the techniques fell far short of Emperor Gui Shu's, who, like Wuxing God King, had comprehended ultimate realm secret techniques. Truly worthy of being a sector beast, Luo Feng remarked, before striking with his knife again. Swoosh. Blade light carved a scar through heaven and earth. In an instant, a new scar appeared in the world, which also pierced through Morosa's body. Though Morosa's body was healing, it was hindered by the scar of heaven and earth. This move is weaker in might than the last, but it seems to sever everything. Morosa felt the surprise and asked, "Master, what do you call this technique?" "It's a special grade inheritance I studied which contains a secret technique, quite powerful even at the second realm of Godly King, named Unity. Luo Feng did not hide it from Morosa. This Unity secret technique can be divided into 3 realms: Foundation, 6 Paths and Unity. I am currently at the level of 6 Paths, proficient in 6 different techniques. Morosa admired, "Master's secret technique is very powerful. It should possess 30 to 40% of the power of my technique." Luo Feng's expression darkened. What a tough guy. The third move. Luo Feng's expression darkened, and he merged as one with the blood shadow knife in his hand. Boom. A rainbow light flashed. That same rainbow light had already entered Morosa's body, and once inside, it explosively detonated. An immensely tumultuous force violently surged in all directions, devastating the insides of Morosa. "Master, are you playing with self-destruction?" Morosa felt the wild and terrifying force within his body, but showed a hint of confidence in his eyes. His body rapidly expanded under the blast, like a supersized balloon. Yet, his body withstood the frightening explosion. Whoosh! The rainbow light in Morosa's body flashed, and had already escaped to the outside world. It was Luo Feng holding the blood shadow knife. "This is not self-destruction," Luo Feng, holding the blood shadow knife, said. "This avatar of mine has only burnt 1/10 of its power. Direct self-destruction was too inefficient. This was an explosive technique from the Unity secret method. The more body burned, the stronger the power." Of course, Luo Feng burning such a vast amount of energy was already the limit of what he could bear when wielding this technique. "Just 1/10 inflicted injuries on me. If it were a full explosion, indeed it could cause me to lose 30 to 40% of my strength." Morosa looked at Luo Feng and reflected, "Master, being in the first realm of Godly King, you are indeed a bit too strong." Luo Feng was somewhat speechless. That last move had been his strongest. This Morosa was already much stronger than himself. "My strongest suit is not killing the enemy." Luo Feng looked at Morosa. "Come on then, it's your turn to make a move. Go ahead. If you can, destroy this world life form avatar of mine." "Good." The real Morosa looked at Luo Feng, his whole body's light erupting suddenly. Boom. In an instant, this level of Star Tower space was engulfed in a vast whiteness. The entire space seemed to be cleansed, and Luo Feng was naturally eroded by this light. Such potent erosive power, Luo Feng stood still, his massive body showing ragged wounds, yet they were also continually healing. Luo Feng looked up and surveyed the surroundings, his skin already tattered. "I can no longer find him by realm alone," Luo Feng silently lamented. As the master of Star Tower, he could control everything within Star Tower at any time. And he was also Morosa's master, so he was very clear about Morosa's current state. Morosa. At this moment, he had fused with heaven and earth. This layer of Star Tower space had become Morosa. "Master, be careful." A terrifying force approached, as if the entire space was being flattened, also compressing Luo Feng's body, but even when flattened into a silvery river, Luo Feng's world life form remained intact. Destruction. There was also an invisible attack, suddenly striking at every life structure of Luo Feng's life form. But these invisible attacks were relatively weak. Each life structure of Luo Feng was like a small world, capable of defending against them. Morosa consecutively executed 30 different techniques, but to no avail against Luo Feng's avatar, which held the energy reserves of 1/3 of a world life form. Even an emperor personally acting would need several techniques to clean it completely. Master's world life form has too strong a recovery ability, Morosa stopped. The rate at which I'm depleting it can't keep up with Master's recovery speed. You're very impressive already. The vast silvery river condensed into Luofeng in silver attire, your current strength, among the second realm of godly kings, can already be considered pinnacle level. On par with Emperor Gui Shu and Wuxin God King. Having ventured into treasured lands with the members of Reincarnation Tower many times, Luofeng had seen much, and was naturally able to judge Morosa's strength level. Peak of second level of God King realm. Morosa pondered. In terms of the complexity of moves, you're still quite behind Emperor Gui Shu and Wuxin God King, Luofeng said, but you're more well-rounded. And the explosive power of a perfect life form is certainly high enough. In the realm of cultivation, he was inferior. But Morosa's foundations were too deep. Without a single weak point. Still too weak, Morosa shook his head. I've heard that even at the peak of the second realm of godly king, facing emperors or monarchs, there'd be no chance of resistance, at most just enough time to reincarnate. Both emperors and monarchs are, after all, ultimate realm life forms. And as rulers of two major ancient countries, they possess powerful secret treasure weapons, strong enough to rival pinnacle sector beasts, Luofeng explained. At the level of Emperor Gui Shu and the others, when facing emperors or monarchs, indeed their only option would be reincarnation. Even among those at the peak of the second realm of godly king, the few who could escape from emperors or monarchs were Wuxin God King, the boat master of the time-space lonely boat, and a few others whose escaping abilities were at an inconceivable level. Even my world life form, Luofeng said, the damage you inflict to me can't keep up with my own rate of recovery. But facing emperors or monarchs, a few more moves, and they could completely annihilate my body. Even if you strike 100 times. With the speed of an emperor, 100 strikes could happen in the blink of an eye. It wouldn't take so many moves, Morosa looked at Luofeng. If they can rival a pinnacle sector beast, they should be capable of breaking the braided cage. They could directly banish you from the source world, throwing you outside the braided cage. Without the ability to return. I'm afraid, in an instant, a world life form would be annihilated in the primordial space. Luofeng was startled. Banished from the source world. Do you now know about the power of pinnacle sector beasts? Luofeng asked. Yes, Morosa nodded. The power of a pinnacle sector beast is much greater than mine right now. And their moves are far more terrifying. I suspect that even the use of secret treasure weapons by emperors and monarchs of the two great ancient countries can only match a sector beast. But they wouldn't be able to stop its destroyer. Not able to stop it. Luofeng was puzzled. It's just that their strengths are comparable. Like me, sector beasts can have many avatars, Morosa said. At the same level of existence, even 3 or 5 would not be able to stop it from destroying. Luofeng pondered. Sector beasts, being perfect life forms, grasp the complete great Tao of destruction origin. And they have numerous avatars. An intimidating thought. It must be the ancestors of both countries and the ancestor of the East Extreme Domain, and also the Emperor Qing, who is beyond God King, Morosa speculated. The ones a pinnacle sector beast truly fears must be them. But those ancestors won't easily make a move, as you've said, their attack power has a God King ultimate realm limit, and their realms are exceedingly high, Morosa said. As long as they can't instantly wipe out all the avatars of a sector beast's counterattack would also cause severe damage to both ancient countries. By now, Morosa had a vague sense of the direction of many high-level moves, and was very aware of how frightening his future could be. If pinnacle sector beasts had no resistance, I'm sure they would have been overpowered and imprisoned long ago, Luofeng agreed. Morosa, Luo Feng asked. How much primordial bloodline biological material like this time would you need to consume to reach the ultimate realm? I haven't even reached the limit of the second realm of Godly King myself, Morosa said. To become ultimate realm, I reckon it would take another 20 or 30 portions of similar food. 20 or 30 portions. Luo Feng felt a great pressure upon hearing that. That's equivalent to 2 or 3 whole primordial bloodline creature corpses, each comparable to the previous food. To think, one entire corpse could be refined into 3 to 5 shares of primordial bloodline. The value was astronomical. If I slowly absorb the power of heaven and earth, there's also hope of reaching the ultimate realm. It would just take a very long time. Morosa looked at his master. Lesser quality food would do too, but the quantity needed would be much greater. No rush, Luo Feng waved his hand. I'll wait until my own power is stronger. Master, I have good news. Morosa looked at his master. Good news? Luo Feng looked at him quizzically. Now that I have reached the second realm of Godly King, I can fully mobilize the pathway of the great Tao of destruction origin within my body. Morosa smiled slightly, and suddenly the vast and complete great Tao of destruction origin appeared in this level of the Star Tower's space. Luo Feng watched with joy. A complete great Tao of destruction origin. The two ancient countries had a way for guest elders to observe the complete origin great Tao, needing 800,000 merit points for one era, and the longer the observation time, the better. For example, the great Tao of life origin, Luo Feng had observed for more than 200 eras. The higher one's realm, the more new gains one could make in observing the great Tao. Although Luo Feng himself had many treasures, the merit points he had earned in the Flame Wind ancient country were not enough, not even enough to exchange for one era. Morosa can mobilize a complete great Tao within his body. Does this mean I can observe it permanently? Luo Feng was extremely excited. Luo Feng looked up. The complete great Tao displayed by Morosa. At first glance, Luo Feng saw a colossal being with 6 curled horns seated cross-legged, the 6 horns faintly signifying the 6 directions of the path of destruction. In a moment of distraction, the complete great Tao of destruction origin transformed into a dark red terrifying monster, its gaping maw as if to swallow everything whole. Various appearances manifested in Luo Feng's observation. He understood that following any one of these forms, he could forge a path. And all paths ultimately led to the same goal, the complete path of destruction. Master, my true body here is maintaining the great Tao of destruction origin. Should I send an avatar out? Morosa couldn't help but speak up. Go ahead, Luo Feng waved his hand. Immediately a simple-looking Morosa avatar, with Luo Feng's permission, quietly left the Star Tower to delightfully enjoy life outside. At the entrance to the sacred land Tianhe, one could see an illusory river. However, if one truly flew into it, they would find that this river was infinitely vast. The depths of Tianhe, too, had no end. Whoosh 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 tilde tilde tilde. Deep in Tianhe, there was a flying boat. Inside the boat, a figure covered in hair sat cross-legged, naturally absorbing the water of Tianhe into his body, nourishing his primordial bloodline. Emperor Tian Kuan and the others really are persistent, still blocking me around the perimeter, Yushui country master scoffed, but they don't have the guts to come deep into Tianhe. On Emperor Tian Kuan's side, there were 6 formidable beings, who were not only searching for Tianhe treasures and cultivating in Tianhe, but also blocking off key areas. Yushui country master was also very patient. It wouldn't matter if it was over 100 eras, or even 1,000, Yushui country master had the patience to wait it out. Just keep enduring. If I can advance further and comprehend that ultimate realm secret technique, from the primordial bloodline, then I'll be able to take on all 6 of them by myself. Yushui country master looked forward to making further progress. But they all knew how difficult it was to make such progress, as not even eons of time had allowed them to advance further. How difficult it was to break through. Brother Yu Shui, Land Dua monarch from Thunder Ancient Country, has entered Tianhe. Run away. Suddenly, a message came through. Yu Shui Country Master received the message and his heart trembled. This is bad. In an instant, Yu Shui Country Master packed up the flying boat and without any hesitation, dove deeper into Tianhe. Rumble 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 tilde tilde tilde, the deeper areas of Tianhe were fraught with peril, filled with lurking terror, but at this moment, Yu Shui Country Master fearlessly burrowed deeper. Suddenly, he spotted an underwater mountain range. Yu Shui Country Master immediately wanted to approach it, but as he got closer, invisible fluctuations began eroding his body, causing it to rapidly disintegrate. Go! Yu Shui Country Master tossed the God King grade secret treasure flying boat he held. This secret treasure, which contained all his gains from Tianhe over the long eons, resisted the mountain range's fluctuations, and proved to be much tougher than Yu Shui Country Master's body, ultimately landing within the mountain range. Whoosh! Yu Shui Country Master immediately turned to flee in another direction. He fled frantically, but after merely flying for a dozen or so breaths, he sensed a terrifying power had already locked onto him from afar. Land Dua monarch, Yu Shui Country Master looked up, this terrifying power locking onto him, and he also saw the source of that power, a towering figure clad in water blue robes. His entire body was covered with blue and white scales, 3 scaled tails, his appearance sacred, his gaze cold and indifferent as he looked directly at Yu Shui Country Master. Through causality, he easily locked onto Yu Shui Country Master. Even though they were separated by an immense distance, being within the same range of Tianhe allowed Land Dua monarch to cast a glance, bringing an endless majesty down upon him. Whoosh! Yu Shui Country Master's body was tough and full of vitality, constantly absorbing the water of Tianhe to sustain himself, but under the overwhelming majesty, he was already half destroyed in less than a breath's time, and in less than a breath's time, Yu Shui Country Master's body was completely annihilated. All the treasures hidden away. Land Dua monarch took a glance, then immediately continued hunting other targets. Tianhe seemed vast, but the actual safe areas were quite limited. Land Dua monarch, very familiar with these areas, patrolled them one by one, wanting to scout almost all of the major safe zones within Tianhe. Monarch. Greetings to Land Dua monarch. Within Tianhe, the ancient godly kings, especially the independent ones and the guest elders from Flame Wind Ancient Country, were extremely respectful upon sensing this monarch's power. The royal family godly kings from both great ancient countries were not implicated, and the guest elder godly kings from Thunder Ancient Country were spared as well. As for the others, any other godly kings that this Land Dua monarch found, he exterminated without exception. It's Land Dua monarch from Thunder Ancient Country. Emperor Tian Kuan received the news, and he and his companions were so frightened that they frantically dove deeper into Tianhe. Emperor Tian Kuan was a guest elder of Flame Wind Ancient Country. Land Dua monarch would not spare him either. In just a short moment, Land Dua monarch patrolled near where Emperor Tian Kuan was, and his intangible domain had already locked onto Emperor Tian Kuan. It's over. Knowing that the terrifying power had locked onto him, Emperor Tian Kuan realized it was over. He even knew that begging for mercy would be futile. Emperor Tian Kuan's body was also annihilated. Within Tianhe, the bodies of over 90% of the ancient godly kings, mainly the solitary ones and the guest elders from Flame Wind Ancient Country, were destroyed under Land Dua monarch's patrolling. Only a handful managed to escape, either due to their impressive escaping abilities, or by leveraging the environment of Tianhe. In this patrol by Land Dua monarch within Tianhe, both Yu Shui Country Master and Emperor Tian Kuan truly died. Of Emperor Tian Kuan's 5 companions, 4 also perished, with only 1 luckily evading death. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Huyang City. What? Luo Feng also received the news. No help for it, just bad luck to run into Lan Jua monarch from Thunder Ancient Country. Yu Shui Country Master transmitted. Luo Feng had never ventured to Tianhe. I've heard that the environment in Tianhe greatly assists those of the water origin bloodline, but repels other great Dao forces. The only ones from the 2 ancient countries with the water origin bloodline are Emperor Xian and Lan Jua monarch, I presume. Right, it's those 2. They have accumulated a profound foundation and rarely come to Tianhe now, Yu Shui Country Master side, but once they do visit, they will patrol the area. Aside from the imperial clan of the 2 ancient countries and guest elders of our own country, all others will be eliminated without exception. Luo Feng nodded. The environment in Tianhe is indeed not easy to hide in. Like the dream domain, which has a vast amount of space, and each space exists independently. One can only be discovered if in the same space. Naturally, the safety there is much higher. Like infinite space, where one must carve out their own great Tao, even when emperors enter, they also possess the same physical bodies and their strength is significantly weakened. This makes it much safer for the scattered cultivators. There are many treasured places that offer some protection to the weak. It's just that the protection varies in strength, and the disadvantage of Tianhe is that the safe areas are easily discovered, while the danger zones deep within are difficult to enter. Fortune and disaster are interdependent, Yu Shui Country Master transmitted. Tianhe is a treasure land for us, and there aren't many crises normally. The dangers of Tianhe actually come from other cultivators. Encountering an emperor or monarch can only be chalked up to bad luck. Is there anything I can help you with? Luo Feng asked. No need. The Emperor of Tian Kuan also lost his true body this time, Yu Shui Country Master replied with a chuckle through a voice transmission. He doesn't have the guts to come back and cause trouble either. I can sense that, of my 6 enemies, 5 have had their true bodies destroyed. Everyone had suffered massive losses, so Yu Shui Country Master felt more at ease. Luo Feng inwardly sighed. Just 1 monarch's patrol was sufficient to sweep through everything in their path. And the Flame Wind Ancient Country had 13 emperors, while Thunder Ancient Country had 9 monarchs. On the side of the scattered cultivators, those in the ultimate realm included the Lord of 10,000 Realms and the Sector Beast, and only a few like the Wind City Empress and Mother River Master were able to match the level of emperors. Over half of these beings were on good terms with the 2 ancient countries. Although there were many scattered cultivators, their top-level fighting power was too inferior. And this was without counting the ancestors of the 2 countries above the godly kings, and the ancestor of the East Extreme Domain, who rarely took action. No wonder the scattered cultivators each hide in the shadows, or even join forces established by the 3 alien races, Luo Feng mused in secret. With the guidance of those 3 alien races, the scattered cultivators were able to compete with the 2 ancient countries for resources. There was also a silver lining. Their biggest competitors were each other, the emperors and monarchs. This gave the scattered cultivators a chance to breathe. In the treasured land, infinite space. Above a vast and misty lake stood a small island, where an avatar of Luo Feng was cultivating. Ever since Morosa reached the 2nd realm of Godly King, able to manifest the complete Great Tao of Destruction Origin, Luo Feng's cultivation, in the Great Tao of Destruction Origin, had also entered an eruption period. All his past accumulations were transforming. Whoosh! A dark chaotic hole appeared in the center of Luo Feng's palm, filled with an unbelievable level of resilience and density of life. Inside the hole, forces swirled as countless condensed dark blade lights circulated and merged continuously. 5 lineages unite. Chaotic whole undying light. Luo Feng watched as a blade light, substantial in form, was born within the dark chaotic hole. The blade light's might was terrifying beyond belief, far more dreadful than the strongest move Luo Feng used against Morosa during their sparring, when he wielded the blood shadow knife with 1/3 of a world life form's strength. The chaotic whole undying light has reached perfection. Luo Feng looked at the blade light forming within the hole in his palm, barely believing it. The first Godly King's second realm secret technique I've conceived is actually from the life and death Tao branch. Yes. The chaotic whole undying light was a concept Luo Feng had fashioned long ago, originating from the path of destruction's heaven-splitting lineage, dark heaven lineage, mixed heaven lineage, then integrating origin of life and life spirituality from the great Tao of life and death, 5 major branches in total. With Luo Feng's realm's growing achievements, the integration and perfection of these 5 branches had been ongoing. Just moments ago, Luo Feng had unknowingly fused these 5 branches into this move chaotic whole undying light completely. The 24 forms and unity secret method he was pondering were theoretically the limit for Godly King First Realm to create. But now, the chaotic whole undying light was a fusion of 5 branches from 2 great Taos. Life, destruction, life and death. 3 great Taos, yet it's the life and death Tao that I first created a Godly King Second Realm technique for, Luo Feng pondered with a hint of melancholy. Of course, creating a secret technique does not mean one has reached the second realm of Godly King. One must master the essence of Tao thoroughly to truly break through. Just as Emperor Gui Shu and Wuxin God King had occasionally created ultimate realm secret techniques by chance. But fully mastering the complete great Tao was still far off. Nevertheless, as a move fully merging the 5 branches, it was already quite remarkable among the Godly King's second realm. After all, the great Tao of life origin and the great Tao of destruction origin were comprised of 6 branches each. Even the techniques currently controlled by Morosa were not as profound as Luo Feng's chaotic whole undying light. Life and death. Luo Feng sat cross-legged on the grass, murmuring to himself as spirit light flickered in his mind. For the first time, with the conception of the Godly King's second realm's life and death secret technique, Luo Feng's understanding of the great Tao of life and death underwent a transformation. In this moment, various life and death Tao branches gradually started to take shape in the depths of Luo Feng's heart. This video will end here.